Most people spend their entire lives chasing a bigger paycheck. They believe that a high income is the ultimate firewall against poverty. They think that if they could just earn $10,000 more a month, their problems would evaporate. But they are fundamentally wrong about how reality works. Income is just a stream of data entering your system. If the underlying operating system of your life is buggy, more data will only cause a more spectacular crash. I have seen people earn $1 million a year and still wake up in a cold sweat of financial terror, because a high income without rich habits is like putting a Ferrari engine in a cardboard box. It looks impressive for a second, then it shakes itself to pieces. The world is obsessed with the how much instead of the how. But true wealth is not about what you earn. True wealth is about the architecture of your daily existence. It is about the invisible code that runs in the background while you sleep. If your habits are designed for consumption, you will always be a slave to the clock. If your habits are designed for production, you become the architect of your own time. Look at the people around you who suddenly get a raise or a bonus. What is the first thing they do? They immediately upgrade their hardware. They buy a more expensive car. They move into a bigger house. They subscribe to more luxury. They call this leveling up. I call it increasing the friction of your life. They are building a more expensive cage for themselves. They are now forced to work even harder just to maintain the new, higher cost of their existence. They are trapped in a high-income loop of despair. Their income went up, but their freedom stayed at zero. Actually, their freedom decreased because their liabilities grew. This is a design flaw in the human psyche. We are biological machines that have been programmed to consume until we are empty. But the elite, the true creators, they do not play this game. They focus on the operating system first. They understand that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. A habit is a decision you have automated so you can save your cognitive energy for bigger things. If you have to think about saving money, you have already lost. If you have to struggle to stay disciplined, your system is failing. Rich habits are the silent protocols that ensure your success is inevitable. High income is a temporary state of the market. Rich habits are a permanent state of your character. The market can take away your job. The market can crash your industry. But the market cannot delete the habits you have hard-coded into your brain. Let us talk about the first layer of this operating system. It starts with the rejection of the average. Most people want to fit in. They want to have the same habits as their neighbors. They want to watch the same shows and buy the same brands. But I am telling you to think different. If you live like everyone else, you will end up with the same anxiety as everyone else. The wealthy mind values silence over noise. It values assets over appearance. It values long-term leverage over short-term dopamine. You must realize that every dollar you spend is a piece of your future freedom you are burning. When you buy a luxury item you don't need, you are trading hours of your life for a shiny piece of plastic. Is that a good trade? The math says no. The ego says yes. And the ego is a terrible CEO for your life. You must fire your ego and hire your discipline. Rich habits are not about deprivation. They are about optimization. It is about making the machine run as efficiently as possible. Why would you want to leak energy on things that don't matter? Every successful product I ever built was about saying no to 1,000 things. Your life is no different. To build a wealthy life, you must say no to the 1,000 distractions that eat your capital. You must say no to the social pressure of looking successful. Real success is invisible to the casual observer. It is a quiet bank account and a loud mind. It is the ability to walk away from any table because you don't need anyone's money. High income is a vanity metric. Rich habits are a sanity metric. One makes you look good at a party. The other makes you powerful in the dark. We are going to dive deep into these specific habits. We are going to rewire your brain to stop chasing the stream and start building the dam. Because a stream can dry up in a drought, but a well-built dam provides power for generations. Are you ready to stop being a high-income laborer? Are you ready to become a wealth habit architect? Then let's look at the blueprint. It starts with the most important habit of all, the habit of radical self-honesty. Look at your current system. Does it work? Or are you just waiting for a bigger paycheck to fix a broken life? Let's find out. Let us talk about the most misunderstood word in the English language, minimalism. Most people think minimalism is about living in a white box with one chair. They think it is about depriving yourself of the beautiful things in life. But that is a consumer's definition. In my world, minimalism is about the elimination of the no. It is about the brutal, surgical removal of everything that does not add value to the core product. And the core product is your life. When you have a high income, the world tries to sell you complexity. Complexity is the enemy of wealth. Complexity creates friction, and friction slows down your momentum. A man with a high income but messy habits is like a high-speed processor with a clogged cooling system. He can do a lot of work, but he is constantly on the verge of a total meltdown. Rich habits are the cooling system that allows you to scale without breaking. The first habit of the wealthy mind is the habit of saying no. You must say no to the 1,000 features the world wants to add to your life. You must say no to the luxury apartment that eats 40% of your take-home pay. You must say no to the social circles that require expensive memberships to prove you belong. If you need to pay to prove you belong, you are in the wrong room. Wealthy habits are built on the foundation of invisibility. The truly wealthy do not need to signal their status with a loud logo or a heavy watch. Their status is their bank statement and their calendar. If you own your time, you are wealthier than any CEO who is a slave to his board of directors. But the world wants you to trade your time for toys. They want you to earn $100,000 so you can spend $105,000. They want you to be a high-income pauper. This is a person who earns a fortune but is always one missed paycheck away from a total collapse. They are living on the edge of a knife, and they call it the American dream. I call it a nightmare with a nice view. To beat this, you must develop the habit of the gap. The gap is the distance between what you earn and what you spend. Average people try to close the gap as soon as their income rises. They get a 5% raise, and they immediately find a 5% more expensive lifestyle. But a wealthy habit is to keep the gap as wide as possible, regardless of the income. If you earn $50,000, live like you earn 30. If you earn $500,000, live like you earn 50. That gap is where your freedom lives. That gap is the capital you use to buy your future. When you invest that gap, you are buying your exit from the rat race. High income is a vanity metric if your expenses are chasing it like a shadow. You cannot outrun a shadow by running faster. You outrun it by turning off the light of your ego. Let us look at the reality of high income traps. When you earn a lot, the bank offers you a bigger mortgage. When you earn a lot, the credit card company gives you a higher limit. When you earn a lot, your friends expect you to pick up the tab. These are all success taxes. If you do not have the habit of resisting these taxes, you will stay poor at a higher level of luxury. Being poor in a mansion is still being poor. You are still worried about the math. You are still staring at the ceiling at 3 o'clock in the morning. The only difference is the thread count of your sheets. But the stress is exactly the same. Rich habits remove the stress by simplifying the math. You must become obsessed with the burn rate. In the startup world, we look at how long a company can survive if it stops making money today. How long can you survive if your income drops to zero tomorrow? If the answer is less than a year, you do not have wealth. You have a high-risk job. The habit of the wealthy is to build a survival runway that lasts forever. They do this by acquiring assets that pay for their existence. But you cannot acquire assets if you are busy paying for liabilities. A liability is anything that takes money out of your pocket. An asset is anything that puts money into your pocket. Most high-income items are actually liabilities disguised as trophies. That luxury car is a liability that robs you of your compounding interest. That designer wardrobe is a liability that loses 90% of its value the moment you wear it. Rich habits teach you to value the invisible over the visible. You must learn to love the feeling of money in the bank more than the feeling of a new purchase. You must learn to love the think different mindset. Most people find joy in the act of buying. The wealthy mind finds joy in the act of building. When you build an investment portfolio, you are building a machine that works while you sleep. When you buy a toy, you are buying a machine that you have to work to maintain. Which one sounds more like freedom? Design your life for zero friction. Design your life for maximum leverage. And remember, your income is the fuel, but your habits are the engine. If the engine is broken, the fuel is wasted. Let's make sure your engine is built for the long haul. The most powerful force in the universe is not the internet or the microprocessor. The most powerful force in the universe is compound interest. But most people with a high income are on the wrong side of the equation. They are paying compound interest to the bank instead of receiving it from the market. Rich habits are essentially a system designed to harvest compounding energy. A high income is a linear event. You work an hour, you get paid $1. Compounding is an exponential event. Your money works an hour, and it earns you a forest. To understand this, you must develop the habit of asset obsession. Average people look at their bank account and see a balance to be spent. The wealthy mind looks at a bank account and sees seed corn to be planted. Every dollar you save is a worker that works for you 24 hours a day. When you spend that dollar on a luxury meal, you are firing a worker who could have worked for you for 50 years. Think about the mathematics of that execution. If you fire enough workers, you will eventually have to do all the work yourself. That is why the high-income earner is always exhausted. They have no money workers because they spent them all on a big house and a fast car. They are a general with no army, fighting the war of inflation alone. Rich habits involve building that army, one soldier at a time. You must become obsessed with the acquisition of assets that do not require your presence. I built Apple to be a machine that could function and innovate without my hands on every circuit board. You must build your financial life with the same architectural integrity. Most people buy liabilities and call them investments. They say their primary residence is an investment, but it takes money out of their pocket every month. They say their car is an investment in their image, but its value drops like a stone. Rich habits teach you to call things by their real names. If it costs you money to keep it, it is a liability. If it pays you money to own it, it is an asset. The goal of the high-income earner is to collect things. The goal of the wealthy habit architect is to collect cash flow. Cash flow is the oxygen of freedom. When your assets produce enough cash flow to cover your lifestyle, you have reached the escape velocity of wealth. At that point, work becomes an option, not a requirement. You can then focus on your denting the universe instead of denting your debt. But you cannot reach escape velocity if your lifestyle is too heavy. A rocket with too much weight never leaves the atmosphere. Most high-income earners are carrying too much lifestyle luggage. They are trying to fly a rocket ship that is tied to a mansion. The habit of the wealthy is to keep the rocket light until they are in orbit. Once you are in orbit, you can have whatever you want because the physics are in your favor. But most people try to have the reward before they have done the work. They want the iMac experience without building the Mac OS first. Rich habits require you to be a delayed gratification specialist. This is a skill that is disappearing in our culture of instant delivery and one-click buying. The system is designed to make you click that buy button as fast as possible. Every notification on your phone is a digital predator hunting your capital. Rich habits involve building a firewall against those predators. You must learn to find joy in the unspent dollar. You must learn to look at your growing investment portfolio with more passion than a new sports car, because that portfolio is a map to a land where you never have to answer to a boss again. High income is a sprint. Habits are a marathon. In a sprint, you can burn out and still win a small prize. In a marathon, if you don't have a system for breathing and pacing, you will collapse at mile 10. I have seen many high earners collapse in their 50s. They worked 20 years at a high level, but they have nothing but a garage full of junk to show for it. Their habits were leaky buckets. No matter how much water they poured in, the bucket was always empty by the end of the month. You must patch the holes in your bucket before you try to find a bigger faucet. A bigger faucet only hides the leaks for a little while. Eventually, the leaks get bigger too. Rich habits are the patching process. They ensure that every drop of income stays in the system to grow. Ask yourself, am I building a bucket or am I building a sieve? If you spend your bonus before it hits your account, you are a sieve. If you calculate the compounding value of your savings 10 years from now, you are a bucket. Design your mind to think in decades, not in weekends. The high-income earner lives for Friday night. The wealth builder lives for the year they become untouchable. It takes a different kind of crazy to live this way. But as I always said, the people who are crazy enough to think they can change their lives are the ones who actually do. Let us refine the architecture of your compounding machine. The next step is the most difficult, dealing with the people who want to pull you back. Every great product faces resistance before it changes the world. Your new financial operating system is no different. As you stop paying the ego tax, you will feel a force I call social gravity. Social gravity is the collective pressure of people who want you to stay exactly where you are. When you have a high income, society expects you to perform a certain role. They expect you to wear the costume of success. They expect you to eat at the restaurants that match your tax bracket. When you refuse to play that part, you become a glitch in their matrix. Your friends will notice that you are still driving the old car despite your promotion. They will notice that you are declining the expensive weekend trips. They will start to ask if everything is okay at work. They will offer you pity because they think you are struggling. But in reality, you are the only one in the room who is actually winning. They are confusing spending with wealth. They are looking at your exterior hardware while you are upgrading your internal software. Rich habits require a certain level of social courage. You must be willing to be misunderstood by people whose opinions don't matter. Most high-income earners are terrified of being misunderstood. They buy things they don't want to avoid being judged by people they don't like. Think about the insanity of that loop. You are trading your life force for a mask. A wealthy habit is to throw away the mask and keep the money. I never cared if people thought I was crazy for wearing the same black turtleneck every day. I didn't want to waste my decision-making capital on clothing. I wanted to spend it on changing the universe. You must apply that same focus to your capital. Stop comparing your internal prototype to their finished marketing. Social media is a giant marketing machine for the high-income, zero-wealth lifestyle. You see the private jets and the gold watches, but you don't see the massive interest payments. You don't see the crushing anxiety of a man who owes millions to the bank. You are comparing your real, messy life to their curated highlight reel. This is a recipe for psychological failure. Rich habits involve unsubscribing from the social competition. You must realize that the race is only against yourself. If you earn more this year than last year, and your expenses stayed the same, you won. If you earned $1 million and spent $1 million, you lost. It doesn't matter how many people liked your photo on Instagram. The math of your freedom is a private document. One of the most dangerous habits of high earners is relative deprivation. This is when you feel poor because you are around people who are even more wasteful than you. If you earn $200,000 but your neighbors earn $500, you feel like a failure. You start to adopt their wasteful habits just to feel normal. You must change your neighborhood or change your mindset. Rich habits flourish in an environment of focus. Surround yourself with people who talk about ideas and assets. Avoid people who only talk about purchases and personalities. The high-income earner talks about what they bought. The wealth builder talks about what they created. This is a fundamental shift in the frequency of your life. When you stop competing for status, you find a massive amount of energy is returned to you. You can use that energy to build your empire. Social gravity will try to tell you that you are missing out. They will tell you that you only live once. But you only live once is the slogan of the bankrupt. The wealthy mind knows that you only live once is exactly why you shouldn't waste it being a debt slave. You only have one life, don't spend it working to pay off a luxury car you don't even like anymore. Build a life that you don't need a vacation from. That starts by ignoring the critics on the sidelines. The people who mock your frugality today will be the ones asking you for a job in 10 years. Stay focused on the long-term roadmap. The high-income loop is a short-term trap. The rich habit path is a long-term escape. It requires you to be comfortable with being the odd one out. In Silicon Valley, we call this being a disruptor. You are disrupting the traditional cycle of an unspend. You are innovating on the very concept of a successful life. Don't let the noise of other people's opinions drown out your own inner voice. Trust the math. Trust the compounding. Trust the silence of your bank account over the noise of your neighbors. We are moving into the final stage of the blueprint. It is time to talk about the moment of inversion. This is when the habits become so strong that wealth becomes an automated output. There is a specific moment in the life of a creator that I call the inversion point. It is the moment when the physics of your financial life completely flip. Up until this point, you have been pushing a heavy boulder up a steep hill. You have been fighting your ego, cutting your expenses, and ignoring the social noise. But if you stay disciplined, the boulder eventually reaches the peak. Suddenly, it begins to roll down the other side with a life of its own. This is when your rich habits become your automated operating system. You no longer have to try to save money or try to be disciplined. Your system simply rejects waste the same way a healthy body rejects a toxin. At the inversion point, your assets start producing more energy than your lifestyle consumes. This is the birth of true, unadulterated freedom. A high income can buy you a better class of prison cell, but only rich habits can buy you the key to the front door. When you reach this stage, you realize that wealth was never about the numbers. Wealth is about the removal of permission from your life. You no longer need permission from a boss to take a day off. You no longer need permission from a bank to buy a home. You no longer need permission from society to feel successful. You have built your own ecosystem, and you are the sole administrator. But stay hungry and stay cautious even at the top. I have seen many people reach the peak and then let their habits decay. They think they have made it, so they let the ego tax creep back in. They start buying the toys they denied themselves for a decade, and slowly the friction returns. The boulder stops rolling forward and starts sliding backward. True wealth is a maintenance project, not a destination. You must protect the integrity of your operating system forever. The world will always try to sell you upgrades that are actually downgrades in disguise. They want to sell you more complexity, more debt, and more distraction. Your job is to keep the design of your life simple and clean. Think of your life like a classic Apple product. No unnecessary buttons, no confusing ports, just pure, streamlined power. A high-income earner is like a PC from the 90s full of bloatware and crashing constantly. You must be the high-performance machine that runs on the leanest possible code. As you move forward, remember that money is just a tool to buy you time, and time is the only truly non-renewable resource we have. Don't spend your time working for a high income just to buy things that waste more of your time. Use your income to buy your time back. Buy your mornings so you can think. Buy your afternoons so you can create. Buy your evenings so you can be with the people you love. That is the ultimate think different strategy. Most people are playing a game they cannot win because the rules are designed for them to lose. By adopting rich habits, you have changed the rules. You are playing a game where the house no longer has the advantage. You are the house. When I was young, I looked at the world and realized that everything around us was built by people no smarter than you. The financial system, the corporate ladders, the consumer traps, they are just inventions. You can ignore them. You can change them. You can build your own version of reality. The high-income trap is for people who believe the world is fixed. Rich habits are for the people who know the world is malleable. So, look at your bank account one last time. Look at your calendar. Look at your daily routine. Are you a high-income laborer or a wealth habit architect? The difference is the difference between a life of quiet desperation and a life of infinite possibility. The system wants you to keep running on the treadmill. I am telling you to step off the machine and build your own factory. The tools are in your hands. The code is written in your habits. Don't settle for a high salary when you can have a high life. The choice is yours, but you must make it every single day. Stay hungry for growth. Stay foolish enough to believe you can be free. The journey from zero to empire starts with the next dollar you don't spend. It starts with the next hour you don't waste. It starts now. The world is waiting for what you will create. Once you are finally free, go out and put a dent in the universe. Thank you for your time. And remember, the best way to predict your future is to invent it. That's all for now. Keep building.